In this demonstration, we want to illustrate two core concepts inside SAP HANA S4 public cloud. The first one is the capabilities of the reporting engine, how to use the pivoting function and the in-memory computing to create complex reports easily in the system. And while using that report, we want to demonstrate the organizational structure of the company, the ledgers, and the divisional accounting, and how that can be used both inside and outside of the legal entity structure. So we'll do this by taking you through a trial balance as an example. So when we enter a report inside SAP, typically what you'll see across the top of the screen is a number of fields that we call filters. Filters are preset fields that you can search on. There are a number of presumable fields that you would want to use, but in addition to that, you can click on the adapt filters and you can access all sorts of extra fields. So for example, if profit center was another field that I would like to filter on, that field would become available to me, and so you can build out those filters as you wish. Now the filters are going to really control the when and the what that you're seeing. And then you will see here, once we populate this and we start getting data into the report, you'll be able to use this navigation panel to illustrate the how you want to see the report. So before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about the financial organizational structure. And the trial balance is a good example of that because it starts at the top level, which is the concept of a ledger. The system allows you to have multiple ledgers. Ledgers will hold typically all of your legal entities, but potentially govern them by different accounting standards. So for example, you could have a US GAAP ledger and an IFRS ledger. And then if you were doing your financial consolidation, let's say in IFRS, you could choose to have all of your companies running in the IFRS ledger, but perhaps only your US companies are running in your US GAAP ledger. Of course, you could do it the other way around as well. In addition to that, there is a concept of extension ledgers, which lie outside of these primary ledgers. And an extension ledger can collect things like commitments. So this is helpful for predictive accounting when it comes to actually booking an entry into a ledger based on a purchase order, a sales order, which is typically not a financial entry, but allows you to understand upcoming business in your system. You could also use a ledger for simulations. How you name the ledger is up to you. So a simulation ledger could be used for you to do your own freestanding journal entries of events that you expect to happen or different scenarios that you want to enter into the system. And then when you run a financial report on your simulation ledger, it will combine the primary ledger with that ledger so that you get those two added together. And of course, for your standard financial reporting, you would just run your primary ledger and it would leave those simulations out. So that is a powerful feature. So once you've selected your ledger, then we have at the next level the concept of legal entities. There is no limit to the number of legal entities that you can have in the system. And you'll see very soon that legal entities are going to share all sorts of data, which facilitates a much easier enablement of new legal entries down the road. So standing up a new legal entity is not onerous, but it does depend on the complexity of that legal entity. So if it's going to be using modules or processes you haven't currently used, that can add some additional complexity for you. And of course, your legal entities will report in both their own company currency as well as currency of the consolidation. So we'll call that the global currency. So in this case, I'm going to select two legal entities for the purpose of this reporting. And we'll leave our dates alone. We'll just leave profit centers wide open. And when we run the report, we're going to get raw data in a default format. So you're going to see here down the rows all of the data that is defaulted. In this case, it's your legal entity and your GL accounts. And then where rows and columns intersect, we get what are called measures. So measures are typically dollars, but whatever type of a value you might be recording in the system, and what that balance is based on the intersection of the row and the column. And of course, you can remove, you can add as you wish. I mentioned currencies. So in this particular example, you can see that we have our US and our UK, so pounds and US dollars, both showing on this report. But as I mentioned, you also have a global currency. So if you are running this report, you typically would want to see it in a global currency so you don't have to worry about understanding the differences. Now here you can see we have got our translated US dollars, and in this case I could actually just remove the company currency since that's meaningless. That gives you an idea of how you would use measures. And then adding rows and columns to the report are very similar. This might remind you of an Excel pivot table. So if we're looking at UK and US, these are stacked, which is fine, but maybe not that easy to read. So if we were to take our company code, which is in the rows, and in fact drag it down to the columns, just using my mouse to do that, now we're getting a comparative financial, both in US dollars with a consolidation beside it. So very simple way to do comparative and consolidated financials, assuming that all of the accounting has been done properly, with just a quick retrieval and manipulation of the rows and columns. Now, in addition to that, you have all of these additional fields. So what you will find in SAP is that large numbers of table joins have already been done before you. Typically, we find there's very little work to be done on customizing reports. And in fact, if I get asked how many reports there are in SAP, that's difficult to answer because, as you can see, this trial balance is a single report, but it can be manipulated to such a degree that you could get 100 different variations easily out of this report. So for example, if I wanted to show profit center in this report, I could search for it at the top, but I'm scrolling down to sort of illustrate how many different fields they are. If I go down to my profit center, and I have the choice of adding it into my rows or my columns, just look at whether it's a horizontal or vertical lines. I once again want to do comparatives, so I'm going to bring profit centers into my columns, and now I'm getting a profit center comparatives, and profit center is sitting here below company code. However, I could, if I wish, rearrange that, and in fact profit center is a good example of a reporting dimension that's outside of the legal entity, meaning that you can have a shared profit center across multiple legal entities. So that's a very powerful feature, because in case that you do have different companies that have similar lines of business, you can now run simple financial consolidation or comparatives of a profit center inside different companies. And so what that means is, by simply taking out the company code, so if we remove that from the columns, we now have a consolidated financial report by profit center, and you can assume that company 1110 and 1710, those values you're seeing, are added together if that profit center exists in both companies. And of course, you could limit the profit centers you're looking at, lots of different ways to pivot this information. So as you're building out your report, you're going to want to save what you've done. You have two different areas that you can save in. So you can save the filters at the top, which is the filter value, or you can save the intersection of columns and rows, and those are known as bookmarks. And you can save them with or without the filters in place. And you also have the ability to make those public as well. So in this case, this report was not built by me. And I'm calling this a report. Technically, it's the trial balance with a certain combination of rows and columns that have been saved as a bookmark. And anybody could come in and rerun this at any point if it's been made public. And so in this example, we have something that instead of profit center, we're looking at cost centers. We have a cost center stacked with sort of an individual GL account stacking. So this way you're getting sort of a departmental report, one on top of each other. And I'll show you a couple others just so you can get an idea of how dynamic this reporting is. So if we look at something like this, which is gross margin by segment and customer group, once again, this is a trial balance report, so this is focusing on the balance of a GL account, but because we have the capability to have all of these tables tied together, even fields like the grouping of the customer to which you've sold to, the segment, which is a value above profit center, so another consolidation outside of the legal entity. And then this has been combined by using a hierarchy, and a hierarchy is available on various different fields. So cost centers, GL accounts, and in the case of a GL account, there's multiple different hierarchies. And so typically you would see one that represents an income statement or a balance sheet. And then you could drill down on this hierarchy. We could expand to the lowest level. And that would finally take you down to the exact GL accounts, but they would be rolled up based on how you designed that hierarchy. And I'll give you one more example. Let's have a look at a production cost variance report. So once again, this report is going to be using a combination of rows, columns, combined with filters to target specific GL accounts relating to production accounting, and giving us a simple report that's showing us our losses and our gains on production in each company code, but based on the product group. So these particular product group, this is the cruise division, these are the specific product models, and this is showing you the production variances on each one of those. And in fact, inside of this report, you could click on one of those rows and you could navigate to other reports. So the trial balance is really a report that's showing you information as far as the balance of the account, but if you want to understand the line items, so what are the specific entries making it up, you could drill down to a report like the line item detail. And it's going to launch us into a whole new report, but it will automatically have populated in the necessary data to filter out what you were seeing in that previous view, except now you're getting all of the specific line items inside that report. And from here, we could drill down even further. So wherever you see a blue hyperlink like this, you have the ability to drill into the journal entry, multiple different ways to display the journal entry. One very useful way is the T account view. So if you want to understand all of the debits and credits for other entries that are associated with this entry, you would see that as well. And in the case of production accounting, there could be quite a few entries in and out of WIP and production variances, etc. So you have the ability to see all of that in a graphical type of view. And when you're done with those reports, you'll just use the upper back button here to go back one report at a time to get you back where you started. So that concludes this demo. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of both the organizational structure, how legal entities, ledgers, and profit centers work inside the system, as well as the ease and capabilities of the reporting and how easy it is to modify and customize reports by simply clicking and dragging fields. Thank you.